Literally one run here. Final Girls by Riley Sager. Or Sager. Sager. But so I listened to the audiobook version of this sometime last month, and actually I had tried to read the physical copy a couple times before, and it took me a while to like really get into it. I mean, pretty much I feel like the first half is very slow. It's just how, I mean, not only a very slow beginning, but also slow middle. And I think this might be one of the few times that I've actually come across any kind of novel that had not only a slow beginning, but also slow middle section. That doesn't mean that I didn't like it. It just means that it took me that long to get into it and really care about the characters and the main character. So, the main character is this woman named Quinn, which I believe could be short for Quincy. But Quinn Carpenter, and so essentially, like, I guess the basic premise is that she survived this like huge, this like massacre, which unfortunately most of her friends, I want to say high school friends, I believe, high school or like, yeah. Essentially, it reminded me of like, kind of like Friday the 13th meets Halloween, and except that the entire story is not just about a bunch of teenagers being slaughtered. It's mostly about, this main character, Quinn, who she is kind of like dealing with the effects of PTSD and all the stress that it's caused her. And pretty much, I guess, even though it's supposed to be like 10 years after this whole massacre took place, she still had yet to deal with, like, really confront I guess, her feelings about the whole thing. And pretty much ever since then, for like 10 years, she just resorted to numbing herself with pills and alcohol, and which, a lot of people do. I believe that a lot of people who experience some kind of extreme trauma and end up suffering from the effects of post-traumatic stress disorder, they inevitably do, unfortunately, resort to numbing themselves with pills and booze and possibly other things. So, in that regard, I do like that aspect of this story, this novel, because I would say that, yeah, it is fairly accurate, I guess, description of how PTSD tends to affect people. So, I mean, granted, it does affect people in different ways, but still, I mean, when it comes to like just the more, I guess, common symptoms of it, yeah. And even though I listen to the audiobook, still, even when I listen to while listening to the audiobook, it still seemed very slow going for me. Like, it wasn't until like towards the very end, like the last 2 or 3 chapters, maybe in like the last 2 chapters, when things started to really pick up and they got a lot more suspenseful. only then did I actually begin to care about what was going on, the characters and all that. And ultimately, like, too, I felt like the author, like, she just included all these extra details just to try to throw the reader off, to ensure that nobody can guess the ending, and nobody can guess, like, who the actual culprit is, and which I guess for the most part, kind of like, actually, I really didn't care by the time I got to the last the last 2 or 3 chapters. At that point, I really didn't care who the murderer actually was. I just figured, like, I was like, oh, maybe it's her, or no, maybe it's him, or maybe it's like more than one person, more than 2 people. I don't. And I mean, though, I will say the ending was interesting. I guess, yeah, I wasn't really expecting it. But then it definitely made sense, though. Yeah. I don't want to spoil it just because. Yeah, especially when it comes to books like these, I feel like usually when they have like a twist ending, and especially when the ending ends up being like the most interesting thing about the entire story, definitely, I definitely choose not to spoil anything for other people who have yet to read it. So, yeah. I mean, I guess, yeah, I will say it is a well-written. Another thing that I guess the main thing that confused me was like all these flashbacks, because the main character Quinn, she would have these flashbacks back to when she was, to that moment when she was hanging out with her friends before they were massacred. And so it was always like a flashback, like pretty much after the first half of the book, I believe. That's when all the flashbacks kicked in. And I don't know, for me, it got kind of somewhat confusing because it's kind of like if you don't really pay attention, then you end up getting lost, or at least I did at least a couple times. Because I'd be like, well, wait a minute, she was in New York, and then all of a sudden she's back to talking to some old friend. But I mean, that could have just been my bad. Like, it's because, I was, again, it was really hard for me to get into it. But then it might also be because of the fact that I've not really been into the horror genre. Yeah, I don't know, I guess for the most part, I've always found like most horror novels or horror movies, especially horror movies, I've always felt like most of them are way too predictable. They're that or way too cheesy, corny, like just the same old stuff, like nonstop killing and blood splattering. And I mean, really, how many times can you see that, or can you read that, about blood splattering on the walls and people screaming and, I guess, during October, like right around, like before Halloween or whatever, I guess it's usually the time when most people are into the whole horror genre. But even after, like, I know there's a lot of people who are into horror stuff like year round, and me, I'm not. I've never been into that. So, yeah. But I guess I would give this a rating of. I'm gonna say like 3.5 stars, 3.5 out of 5, and. Yeah, that's mostly because I just, I feel like the ending was the best part. and everything else was just filler, a lot of filler. I mean, I guess, to be fair, not all of it could be considered filler, but a good portion of it, so, yeah. And then I don't know, too, maybe, I mean, I feel like it could actually work a lot better as a movie. So, I mean, I figure, like, if it does get adapted into a movie, then it would make a lot more sense. It would be easier to swallow. And yeah, but that's just my opinion. So there you go. That's my review of Final Girls by Riley Sager. Sega. Oh. So yeah, thanks for watching this. Thanks for listening. As always, till next time, don't forget, keep it real, keep on rocking, and peace.